Hey guys, I cannot wait for the show today. I've got a repeat guest and one that I am super excited to catch up with. Rachel Moore volunteered at my private practice about a year ago and then joined me on episode 13 of the podcast to share her journey about how she discovered occupational therapy, how she was going about looking into occupational therapy programs, as well as the first steps that she took as a pre-OT student. I recently met up with Rachel to hear how everything is going, as she is only days away from starting her graduate occupational therapy program. It's a super exciting time for her, as she is about to embark on the next step of her OT journey. So let's see what's been going on with Rachel since the last time we talked. If you're interested in occupational therapy, this is the place for you. This show aims to explore our profession by sharing who we are and what we do. Because for us, occupational therapy is more than just a job. Hi, I'm Sarah. Welcome to OT for Life. So Rachel, I know that you just had orientation for your OT program that you are about to start, and I am super excited to hear a little bit about how that went.
Definitely. So leading into it, before I went, I was pretty nervous because it's just like this beginning of this whole new process and experience with grad school and first time meeting everybody. And so I was just, my heart was beating really fast, even the day before. And so it was so sweet. That morning, both my brother and my mom left me little notes before I went. They're like, oh, they'll love you, like knock them. I'm like reading it right now. My mom's note says, they'll love you, knock them dead, but soak it all up. No, I love you. And that was just so important because once I got there, we were given some forms to fill out and return back to them. And while I was doing that, I just took a moment and I looked around at everybody and I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. Grad school is starting. Like it was all that effort going into applications, finally like sitting there and realizing it and soaking it all up and just not being afraid of what's about to come this next 2.5-ish years to the rest of like my experience with OT as a whole. So that was like leading into it, just all this nervous energy, but then it just got so relieved once I was there. I was given like a table to sit with. So I got to meet a few people that would be in my cohort. So although like everybody in our cohort was there, I didn't get to meet everybody because there's just a lot happening.
So they almost like split you up into groups kind of thing?
Yes. So
okay.
when we got there, we were given a name tag and a color to go sit at a specific table that was designated with that color. And I went and I sat down, and they were kind of distributed with like the different sections of the cohort because we're broken up into a few different sections. So I got to meet some of the people that I would be taking some classes with, but the people in my specific section weren't really at that table, which was a little bit of a bummer, but that's fine.
You have time.
Yeah. I'll be with them for the next 2 years, so it'll be fine. But yeah, so I met them. At each table too, they had somebody from the cohort before us kind of facilitate our table. And that was really nice. So we got to meet somebody who was already in the program. And then the whole rest of the day, we had a bunch of speakers. So the majority of our time there was spent with just a bunch of speakers telling us different things about the program, different student organizations, OTAC, which is now I'm learning, the OT Association of California, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Perfect.
You got it.
And we also got this super fun little scavenger hunt, it was called, that functioned as a tour of the campus.
Uh-huh.
So again, through that, we got to meet and like get to know some of the people that were in our group. So it was really fun. It was kind of long with all of the speakers. We were there for 6-7 hours, but
yeah.
But it was good. It was really good.
Would you say it was like overwhelming or just exciting? Like the whole time you're like, it's happening.
It was, I would say, mostly exciting. There were some times where I felt a little overwhelmed. Yes. Because they also gave us this folder full of all these different papers that, at least I remember at one point they told us that they gave us a copy of a form that we would use a year from now. And I was like, I have to keep this paper for a year. And so there's just a lot of information coming at us. And I was like, I won't remember a lot of this, but it'll be okay. I'll ask questions along the way to try to get help when I forget things.
Yeah, hopefully they'll either give you another paper or it's
Yeah.
digital, and so you can just go
Yeah,
download it again. Because I don't know if
definitely.
I'd be able to hold on to a paper for an entire year.
Yeah, and I've like been pretty organized with keeping everything in this whole process, and so hopefully it'll be fine. But yeah, I feel like most people that wouldn't fly super well.
Yeah, right. And
Uh-huh.
so at the time of this recording, you start tomorrow or you start on in
In two
2 days?
days.
In 2 days.
Yes.
Okay. That's what I thought. And then I was like,
Yeah.
wait a second, maybe it is tomorrow. So this is like this is like so exciting for
It
you.
is.
I'm excited for you. I'm excited for myself. I don't even know why. I'm excited. Like everything that you've been working towards almost your whole life now, like is leading up until this moment. And I know just over the past year, you have been working incredibly hard, getting all your volunteer hours, doing applications, taking the GRE, and doing everything that you have to do in order to apply and get into an occupational therapy program. And so let's jump back a little bit. Let's kind of talk about what's been going on. What would you say is the one thing that really stands out to you within the last couple months?
Well, I guess in this whole process, like it's all coming to a close. Like in my mind, I had submitted my applications like I thought I did. And there was one moment, I don't even remember what month it was, but when I was submitting my applications, there were three schools that I was applying to. So two of them were a part of OTCAS, which is like the online general application system that those two schools were with. And then the other one had its own application separately. I found out months after submitting or supposedly submitting my OTCAS application that there was a part of it that I made a mistake on. I didn't follow up to see if my transcripts came through.
Oh no.
And so in their system, it appeared as though I didn't have one of my transcripts sent to them, even though I technically had, with like the logistics of how the community college district that I was a part of was working. I like took some classes from two of them, but they all came through on one transcript. But the OTCAS system didn't register that. And so they never fully completed and sent my application to those two schools. And so this was maybe like 2 months after one of the schools' deadlines already closed, and maybe 2 weeks before the second school deadline was coming to an end. And so I just felt like I made the biggest mistake of my life not following up on this. Like, how did I miss this? All of this effort, I just felt it all like crumbling. It's like, how could I have done this? It just was like such a big deal for me. And so like I handled it how I could, but I just thought like, even that third school that wasn't a part of it, it's like, there's just no way that I'm getting in, just all this like negative thought and self-doubt. And then the very next day, this was Thanksgiving. It was the day before Thanksgiving, and I got an email from the third school. And I was like, like, this is it. If I find out if I get in or not. And then I ended up opening it, and it was an acceptance to the third school that I was applying to of these three. And I just was like, oh my gosh, complete overjoy, flipping out. It was just so funny to me, like looking at that moment and thinking that in the span of 24 hours, I went from complete hysterics and crying in my room, just thinking that everything was coming crumbling down, and all this effort that I had put into these applications and this whole process for the whole year was going to be for nothing. And I would have to wait a whole nother year, which to me in that moment felt like a really long time, to the very next day getting accepted into an OT program, and the complete elation and just so much joy, different kind of tears at that time. It was just a lot of emotion in the span of 24 hours.
I totally understand what you went through, even though mine was like a slightly different scenario, but it was like the same emotion as you were talking about that. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's bringing back memories for me. So mine was not when I was applying to school. Mine was actually when I was taking the board exam. This was the day before. I was supposed to take my exam on a Friday, so this was the Thursday before. And I took a little practice exam, and I like structured my entire morning to mimic the Friday. And like what time I'd wake up, giving myself like time to get ready and sit down like right when I was going to be taking the test the next day, like literally just like paralleling what I should be doing.
Nice.
Yeah, right? You
That's
would think
really smart.
so.
I'll take that. I'll do that.
Right there. I'm giving you advice in my story too. So I take the exam, and the practice tests, at least back in my day, they used to be a little bit shorter. I don't know if they're now the same length as the actual exam or if they are a little bit shorter. But I took the exam, and they immediately give you your scores right there. Mine was highly deficient in every single area except for one. And that one area I was just deficient in. And I had a complete mental breakdown.
I would too. Yep.
Right?
Oh my gosh.
And so it's like the same thing. Like I remember I was crying. I was calling my friend that was a nurse practitioner, and I was like, oh my gosh, like my heart is pounding. Like, what's going on? She's like, you're stressed. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was freaking out the rest of the day, and I couldn't study anymore. I basically was like, all right, I'm just going to suck it up. I'm going to go take the test, and I'll probably have to take it again. Went and took the test and ended up passing. But
yay.
it was that like emotional, just like collapse of everything. And so I totally can relate to what you were saying.
Yeah. Wow. That too, with the board exam, that's post your whole entire program, and so you're just like the culmination. Like you can't even be an OT even though you pass your program. You have to pass the test.
Right.
So I can't imagine. Wow.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, it's the same thing. Mine was just after the program. Yours was just before getting into the program.
So it can happen at any time, you know?
Exactly. I think something that I want to highlight for people is that your journey to and during OT school may not go exactly how you plan it to go and how you hope it would go. And like I've talked to people that it's like they had to apply multiple times just to get into school. I know a few people that had to take the board exam multiple times. Like you might not get in to school right away, you might not pass the boards right away, but that doesn't mean that you are not going to be a good OT.
Definitely. Yeah. I think that was something too that I was encouraged by when I was going through that like complete breakdown of like, I'm not getting into school this time around. It was interesting how I had that whole rest of the day to come to terms with that idea that like, hey, I might actually like not get into the programs this time around, and how interesting it was to eventually like be okay with that and just think like, you know, we'll try again. It'll be another year, but like, it's okay. There's going to be a lot to, like there's going to be so many new things that happen this year, and like it all comes together. Like it all works out. It's all part of your story, and everybody's story is different. And that's okay. The fact that it's different is totally fine.
Mm-hmm. I think I had the exact same realization during my mental breakdown. And I was like, well, I might not pass the test, and I'm going to have to pay for it again. And I'm going to have to continue studying for however long. Because I think you have to wait X amount of weeks in order, like, before you can take it again. So, yeah, same story.
You know, maybe like mental breakdowns are a good thing in a sense, because when you're doing fine, like you're just kind of coasting. And then it's those really intense moments of life where you're like realizing important things. I think it's a good thing sometimes to just have a day where you're like not having it all together.
Yeah. I think it just makes you appreciate when things are going well.
That too. Yeah.
Like if everything's going well, you never really have to deal with challenges. You never have to deal with anything difficult. It's just, like you're just coasting. But you have something that kind of just like slaps you in the face and is like, here, like, what are you going to do about it? And that's really when you kind of have to like pick yourself up and be like, all right, I'm either going to let it destroy me, or I'm going to get up off the ground and do something about it. So let's keep going back now. Let's go back to pre-applications. Or do you want to talk about volunteering next? I
was volunteering with you and then one other pediatric clinic. And then, so I started volunteering at the hospital. I know I mentioned that on the other podcast, which I guess I didn't fully explain very well, but that makes perfect sense because I didn't start and I had no idea what I was getting into. But I am actually a floater. So I just like run errands around the hospital, whatever they need for a volunteer to do, like discharge patients. So it's not directly in the OT realm of the hospital. And I really enjoyed the people that were a part of this Wednesday group at the hospital. And so I asked to like just continue being a floater there. And yeah, so I was volunteering at the hospital on Wednesdays, which was so fun. I actually have to switch what day I'm going to be volunteering there to Monday when I don't have my OT program classes, just because I still want to be there.
Uh-huh.
It's just such a good group. And even though I'm switching days, so it'll be with different people. I'll actually start that tomorrow too. My new day.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I am just so thankful for the time that I had there, even though it wasn't like completely OT related, just because the people were so kind. They actually, this past Wednesday, when it was my last time, they gave me little cards to be like, good luck, like you're going to be great. I was like really overwhelmed by how sweet it was. I'm just so thankful for them. So really enjoying my time at the hospital.
Well, and I kind of want to jump in and
Yeah.
just touch a little bit on that, because I think that's I think that's a very important point that you made. I think a lot of times people are like, I need to be only seeing OT. I'm going into OT school. I need to just see OT. And I don't think that's necessary. I actually think being a part of the larger process would be really beneficial to understand how other things, how everything works within that hospital setting. Because throughout school and throughout your field works, you're going to pick up the clinical skills, but you might not necessarily get to be the floater or get exposed to all these other professionals and other therapies that are happening. Like you might, but there's a good chance that you're just going to be really seeing mainly OT centric type stuff. I think that just will help you kind of understand the bigger picture of when you are studying about adult rehab and hospital-based practice and that whole kind of complex beast that it is. I think you'll have such a better understanding now that you've kind of seen it, not just from the OT lens, from lots of different angles.
Yeah, I really hope so. I can see that too. I think that's one reason too why I just really enjoyed being a floater, getting to see like the whole hospital, each floor, how it all works. Also, with discharging a patient versus working with them in the OT portion of the hospital, I guess. I think you just get to like see them in a different area and get to just see them as a whole person. I don't know if I don't think I've fully formed that idea yet, but so far it makes sense in my mind, like to see them not just when somebody's doing an OT session with them, like they're have other parts of their day that they're going through and their life as a whole too. Yeah, I don't know. That's just random musing in my mind right now.
Right. Oh, no, that's perfectly fine. I mean, I think it will just take time for everything to kind of mold and really start to kind of integrate and make sense. Mm-hmm. But I think specifically seeing like a discharge type situation, I think that's really good because like ultimately as an occupational therapist, like that's what we're working towards. We are working for in a hospital or in any other setting. Like I always say like when I go like see my clients and I'm talking to the parents, I'm like, I want to work myself out of a job here. Like I want to get your child doing everything that he or she possibly can. And so you guys no longer need me. Like that's my goal. But I feel like seeing the discharge of a patient is something really, really good to see because that's like really ultimately what you're working towards. So I'm sure just kind of going through that process and just being able to observe and be a part of it was probably really interesting. And I think it will be really beneficial as you go through the rest of your program.
And it's cool too, because as a volunteer, like you get to discharge anybody really. If they're ready to go home, of course.
And you get discharged and you get discharged. Yeah. You're like the Oprah of the hospital.
They're like, who is this volunteer? They shouldn't be here anymore. No, because I was just thinking like you have an opportunity to discharge like a mom and a baby. So like that would be like a correlation to working with like little ones. maybe as an OT at one point, just like to see that interaction between a mom and her newborn kid and just wheeling them out in a wheelchair to their car, and just like being able to talk to them. And yeah, it's just really neat. And like, on the other hand, the other day I got like the absolute honor to discharge a 92-year-old woman. And I was like, just being next to you is the coolest thing ever. It's a feat to get there, and you're doing great, and you're going home, and it's just a good day for you. And to the celebration, I remember with the people who were with her, they had like little party hats on. They're like, it's our going home day. It's like, yes, it is.
I love it.
Also, it's been such a good experience for me to gain the practice of talking to people that I don't know and people that have been in the hospital. I hope that it lends itself well to like whatever practice I end up getting into.
Yeah, that sounds like such an awesome opportunity. And I know we kind of touched on it, that you were interested in doing it when we chatted in the last episode. So I'm glad that you got to experience this, and from what it sounds like, you're going to continue to experience it. So you'll just continue to get more and more opportunities and exposure and just experience different things. And I think that will be really fun. Potentially could be challenging. You might get some things that might be a little bit more emotionally challenging or something like that. But yeah, I think that's going to be a pretty cool thing to have as you go through school.
Yeah, and I just hope that I'm able to do it through school. That's kind of where I'm at right now. It's like, I'm going to keep using this part of my time to volunteer at the hospital. But if there's ever a moment where like, if coursework and other things are just way too much for me to handle, I'll have to reconsider what I'm doing. But hopefully, yeah, I really enjoyed it. So hopefully I can hang out for longer.
I think that's a good mindset to have. Like, yes, I want to do it, but if I can't, okay, I'll give it up. But right now, yeah, I want to. So we're gonna try to make it work.
Yeah, make it work.
And so you also got to kind of see some hippotherapy, right?
Yes, I did. So you were awesome and connected me to an amazing PT who does hippotherapy with kids. She was so kind to let me volunteer. And I recently had to say bye to her in starting my program because I just didn't have the availability that it would work well. But it was really neat to be a part of that because I had previously been volunteering with a therapeutic horseback riding association, which functioned differently than her practice. And so seeing more, of course, PT is not OT, but just a similar framework to OT with like a horse. It's just so cool. So kind of getting to see it like in her realm of things. And of course, you see some parallels with hippotherapy between PT and OT, which hopefully I'll come to understand deeper eventually. Because still, like I'm just kind of winging it and only understanding what is communicated to me little by little. But yeah, it was really neat to be a part of that. And I was a sidewalker, so I would walk alongside her horse with her client riding the horse, and while she would be working with their body control, and I don't even really know like the right words to use with what do you call it?
Postural stability.
There you go. It's like all these things, which I will know. And I'll look back on this podcast and be like, Rachel, you know nothing. And it'll be great. It's fine.
But I'm sure that when you go back and listen to your first recording, you're like, whoa, hold on. I know so much more now than I did then. Uh-huh. And yeah, like this is kind of a snapshot of what's going on in your life right now. I hope that you come back in a month, 6 months, a year, 10 years, whatever, and you're like, oh, I've learned a lot from that moment. I hope I can say the same thing about myself too, right? Because if we have all the answers now, like, it's boring.
Oh, yeah. No, it's and listening back to our first podcast, I was thinking how like it's such a sweet form of a little time capsule to look back on that. And gosh, I just can't imagine what it must have took for all these things to line up, and like for me to be reaching out to you and find a volunteer opportunity with you, and then you creating this podcast, and then you being interested in having me on the podcast, and then being able to get into grad school and watch the story unfold through the podcast eventually. It's so cool to be a part of that.
Yeah, and that like honestly, this following you wasn't really even like in my brain at the time that we recorded. It was more like, oh, like where Rachel is right now, it's a great place. And I think she has a lot to share with people that are potentially going through looking into volunteer opportunities and looking into getting into an OT program. So I was more just like, I want to capture where you are right now because I think it will bring value to other people. And then as we were recording, I was like, wait a second. I was like, this would be fantastic to actually like be able to follow you throughout this experience. And so originally it was like, yeah, we're just going to record once and that's it. And now I'm like, I can't wait. Like we're recording a second time. And now like I can't wait for another maybe 6 months or a year when we record again and like literally just like touch base as you go throughout this process. And so, yeah, I'm so stoked about it.
Yeah, it's so sweet. And I hope it's helpful to people too. Otherwise, like it's really cool for me, but you know, I really do hope that it's helpful for other people who listen.
I think it is. I think it will be. I think what we go through it's not unique, right? Like so many people are going through what you're going through right now, or myself as a practitioner. And a lot of times we feel like we are kind of isolated. Maybe we don't get to see other OTs, or you don't realize that somebody else is going through the same struggles or something. And like something that you will say or potentially have said, I know will resonate with at least one other person. And they're going to be like, oh yeah, that was me. Or, oh, I should maybe go back and look at my applications and make sure that everything went through. There could be somebody listening to that and be like, oh, okay, I should go check on that. Make sure that doesn't happen to me. So,
you should. If that's you and you're listening, go do that.
right now. You can hit pause, go check, and then come back. We won't fault you for that one.
And I love thinking about that in light of like comparing starting grad school and starting my undergrad program, and seeing how like right now going into school and thinking about what you just said, how like it's like okay to be what you're experiencing. It's okay to feel that way. And because in meeting all these people, like I'm not afraid right now to share that. And so in meeting the people in my cohort, I'm just excited to be like, hey, how is your application experience, or how's like what's going on in your life right now? Whereas I think in starting undergrad, I was just so afraid of like who I was, and I don't feel like I really even understood who I was. And then like in getting to know people, I was like really fearful. And so I love being able to like juxtapose those two things and just remind myself like it's okay wherever you're at, and like everyone else also has these stories, and you can bond over those things and you can form communities over those things. It's just really, it's exciting to be in a different place than that was. So hopefully I just continue to learn new things and to grow, and I'll look back on this and maybe think something similar. Who knows?
Yeah, that's so awesome what you just said. And I think that's kind of one of the reasons that I started this podcast in general, was really just to kind of like share and highlight what's going on, so people can either get inspired by the stories or realize that they're not the only one, or like just somehow get some sort of connection out of these stories that we're sharing. As you were talking, I immediately just kind of got drawn to my the fieldwork mini series that I released. Mm-hmm. And one of the big reasons that I wanted to do that is because like I myself struggled in fieldwork, and I wanted to have students share their struggles because I know that other students struggle as well. And I also wanted them to share their wins and share their victories and share their growth and everything that happened, because I think when I was a student, I kind of just tried to like shove it under a rug. Like, oh, I'm the only one struggling. I'm the only one having a hard time. And I tried not to like share it with anybody because I thought it was a sign of weakness. And like since then, I've had this realization of talking about things even if you're struggling or having challenges, like it's not really a sign of weakness. It's more just like, hey, I don't know what to do, or I need help, or like, what are you going through? And it's really more about building a connection and building kind of a community of people that will support you regardless if things are going well or if things are not going well. So yeah, that's kind of, I don't know, that's where my brain went as you were talking about that.
Yeah, and your mention of the fieldwork miniseries, I love listening to that personally as someone who hasn't experienced that yet, to like hear their experience and to think like, oh, one day like I'll be in their shoes in some form or another, and to in a sense look forward to that, but then also learn from what they're going through has been so cool. Also specifically because you can hear about this and read about it on various blogs and things that people create. But for some reason, at least for me, there's just something really special about hearing them so candidly sharing their stories. It just makes it so much more real and attainable, I guess is the word that I'm trying to find. I've really appreciated that.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's exactly why I wanted to do it, because I feel like most of what you get before you go on field work is just reading about it, or maybe potentially talking to somebody that's like a year above you or somebody that's already gone through it. But that's not necessarily accessible to everybody. And so I really just kind of wanted to be able to share that with people. Okay. I'm loving where this is going. I have a question.
Yes.
If you could give one piece of advice to somebody who is a pre-OT student going through the process that you just went through, what would you say to them?
That is a great question. Gosh, I mean, just have fun. You're gonna make it. And I think what we mentioned earlier is what I would want to say about like your story is unique to you, but also so similar to other people.
I like what you said, have fun and you're going to make it. Like, I feel like OT school is going to be really hard for probably most people, if not all. It's going to push you to the max. And I think remember to like have fun and you will get through it. I think that's like a really good kind of mentality to have.
Thank you for telling me that it's going to be hard.
You're welcome.
As I'm like starting in 2 days. But it's true. Like it's probably going to be really stretching. And so I'll hopefully look back on this and hear myself say that in a time where I'm trying to study for something or just overwhelmed with stuff, and just be like, you know what? Have fun. You're going to make it. Take a breather. It's going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. I think going through grad school was definitely one of the hardest things that I've had to do. It pushed me in ways that I didn't even know that I could be pushed at the time. And so, yeah, have fun. You'll make it.
Thanks, Sarah. What wise advice.
Right? What do you think, at least right now? Okay, I have a two-part question. Okay. What do you think that you are most excited for starting the OT program? And what are you most nervous for?
Great questions. I am most looking forward to the new relationships that I'll be experiencing and forming, either with professors or other students or people that we work with. I feel like I've always been really motivated by like the people aspect of anything. And so I'm really excited to be stepping into a program where I can see how like in 2.5 years I'll be coming out of this place with these new friendships, and like how exciting that is, that these people that I haven't even met yet, like we're going to become close companions for the next 2 years and just work on something really, really hard together. I'm just really excited about. And then something that I'm nervous about.
Wait, hold on. I'm going to cut you off.
Okay.
Because I want to talk about that more. Because I like that you brought that up. And I think that is, I don't even think you were meaning it in the form of advice, but I think focusing on the relationships as you are in OT school is huge, because you have classmates that are in your cohort. You could have classmates that are a year older. You could have classmates that are a year younger, depending on where you are within your studying. And you could potentially have other professionals that you are all other professional students like physical therapy or speech therapy, nurses, anything like that, as well as the professors. And I really wanted to just kind of highlight having those relationships and utilizing the networking while you're in school is so big. And especially getting it while you're in school and then having that community as you go out into practicing is huge. And so I love that you said that like that's what you're excited about and that you're already like just ready to like just start connecting with people and start meeting people and hearing their stories and learning together.
Yeah, and you mentioned faculty. I got to meet my advisor at orientation the other day. Yesterday. Wow, it seems like a long time. Someone just mentioned that she was their biggest cheerleader throughout the program. And I was so excited about that specifically because I was just so thankful that there's people in this program, faculty in this program that are so, that they're looking out for the success of their students. And that was something that she specifically was mentioning the whole night when she would speak in front of the whole cohort. So I'm just already really excited about that relationship. I made sure to tell her too. Sometimes I'm afraid of like telling people that I really appreciate them because I'm like, what if this is like too much? But I'm coming to the realization like people never are weirded. Well, they might be weirded out by it, but they never dislike it when people are really nice to them. And so I just wanted to tell her, it's like, I'm so excited that you're our advisor after hearing you speak. Like, I'm so thankful. She's just so kind and will hopefully be one of the biggest cheerleaders for us throughout the program. So
that's awesome. That's so
new
cool.
relationships.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
And I wanted to take a minute and give a shout out because we actually have one of our listeners. We found out after some stalking and whatnot, but we found out that you guys are actually, hey, it's okay. Totally fine. So we actually found out that you guys are in the same cohort. So I just wanted to give a little shout out over to Margie at So California OT.
Woohoo.
Yeah, I know, right? And that was super fun when we made that discovery. And I was like, Rachel, I was like, you have to go find this girl. You guys are going to be in class together.
And I think it's so cool that like that connection was made, that people who are going to be in my cohort are listening to this podcast, and so fun. So fun.
Yeah. Well, and then the other one too is I was talking to one of my old volunteers, Alex, and apparently you met him too.
I did.
And he like messaged me and was like, hey, I met your other volunteer the other day. And I was like, oh my gosh, I absolutely love this. This is amazing.
Yeah, I recognized him from pictures that you have posted, and I was like, hello, you're Alex, right? It's like, I'm Rachel. I was one of Sarah's volunteers.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it's so exciting because I met him almost at the exact same time period as I met you. And so getting to meet him, he volunteered with me for a couple months, then went about his applications and all of that good stuff, got into school and started a year ago. And then like you took his place a year later. And it's been really cool because I remember him just starting school and being all nervous and being a little unsure of like what's going on. And now he's one of the upperclassmen, and now he's helping you guys that are just starting, and like seeing it just kind of trickle down of the growth that everybody's going through. And that part has been such a cool experience for me to really be a part of your journey and like get to witness like what you guys go through throughout this entire process. And that has just been absolutely amazing for me to see and experience.
Aw, that's so fun. I'm glad that we're all get to be a part of this.
Exactly. Okay, so I totally cut you off. We were talking about what you were excited about, which you mentioned, but then what you were nervous about as you were about to start the OT program.
I mean, generally speaking, I feel a little bit nervous about the workload that I'll be facing just because it's getting back into school again. And people just mentioned, grad school's hard. So just thinking about that's in the future. But I heard too that like the first month of this specific program, like they kind of ease you into it. So I'm very thankful for that. But I think even with that too, it's like, just stick to it. Again, like you're going to get through it. So I remind myself of that. I guess I'm nervous about the moments where I'm going to be after learning something and then going and actually performing it, either in a fieldwork situation or like in a mock session, I suppose. That just makes me a little nervous just because it's getting into something that's so new and trying to combat that fear of failure, of course, being like, it's okay to make mistakes. Like that is how you learn.
Yep. You already have the pep talk.
Yeah, I know. But like, I don't know. It's just like, there's still going to be that feeling inside where you're like, I have messed up. But just like taking that, be like, it's okay. I don't know. So I guess there's that. I think this isn't necessarily I'm nervous about it, but it's something that I've been thinking about the last day since orientation and like learning about like the schedule for the next 2.5 years, was just taking note that there are going to be a few different weeks or situations where like I'm not going to be able to do the things that I've always been doing. For example, like there's this summer camp that I've been a part of and volunteering at for the past, 6 years, where I'm not going to be able to do anything with them for like the duration of the program. And so that makes me really bummed out because otherwise I'd miss weeks of the program or even like a day here or there. I'm coming to terms with the reality that like for the next 2.5 years, like this school kind of owns me. And like, this is what I'm committing myself to rather than the things that I've like been a part of before.
I remember, This is so silly, but I remember, so my birthday's in the summer and I never took summer school like growing up. I was always like, nah, I do school during the school year and the summer is summer and I don't take summer school. I think I actually took it like one summer, but I think I ended up like taking my birthday off. And when I started grad school, I was like, because we started in the summer and we had a very intensive 8 weeks or something like that first summer. And I remember being like, I have to go to class on my birthday. And it was like, it sounds so trivial, but it was like one of those moments I was like, I've never had to do that before. All right, I guess this is my life now. I got to suck it up and I got to go do it. But I get it. I had that same thing where I'm like, man, it's just a change and it's fine.
It's just like, it feels like letting go of something that I love so much. And you're like, it's going to be fine. Like there's going to be new things that you're going to love so much that it's all part of the process,
It is.
It'll be all right.
It is. And change is good. And that doesn't mean that you can't get back into it afterwards, like after you're done with school. But yeah, it's just one of those things that you like always count on. And then it's like, yeah, well, that's not going to happen right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have something that I want to bring up. So I actually just did a recording with Andy from Pre-OT Success. And I wish I would have known about this sooner, Rachel, for you and for other people, but we could talk about it now. So he actually has started a private Facebook group and is all about supporting people that want to get into OT school.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm just amazed. And it's all about how to stand out, how to like share your unique story, but basically how to stand out against all of the other applicants. I think that's such a cool thing. And I'm so glad that somebody's doing that because I think there's so much knowledge to be shared. And I feel like this is kind of one of the reasons that I've been talking to you throughout this process of sharing your story and sharing the things that you've been going through to help other people as they're going through it as well. And so, yeah, like definitely if there is anybody who is looking for more resources about getting into OT school, go check out Pre-OT Success on Facebook. I'm not allowed in because I'm a practitioner, but
I'm actually looking at the About This group right now.
Oh, perfect.
On their Facebook page.
Yeah. Talking with him, I was just like, wow, this guy's fantastic and really inspiring.
When you were mentioning that, I was reminded of something that they told us at orientation.
Uh-huh.
which was something along the lines of, you've been in an atmosphere of like competition for the last few months with applications and like trying to get admitted to programs, but like welcome to orientation. Like you've made it. Like you can let that go, and like now you're here to collaborate and just encourage each other for each other's mutual success. And I'm like, yes, like because it can be so hard to be like putting yourself out there, and at least for me, to think like what do I have to offer, and like try to communicate that to schools and put your best foot forward. But then like it's just kind of draining eventually, at least for me it was. And then to finally be in the program, she's like, oh, now we can work together. It's a good situation.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool that you brought that up, because yeah, it is. It's like you're competing because you want to get in, and you have to stand out and show that you're different and show that you are, I mean, unfortunately, you have to show that you're better or a better candidate. Like that's the nature of getting into OT school. Now it's like everybody's here. You guys are all on the same playing field right now. And now you have to learn to collaborate and work together.
They both teach you really important things, both of those environments, I suppose, is what you could call them.
Yeah. But I think like moving forward, that collaboration piece is the most important now, because as a student, you'll have to collaborate with your classmates and with your professors and faculty at school. And then once you get out into the workforce, you're going to be collaborating with your coworkers and other professionals and clients, caregivers, anybody that you could potentially come in contact with. So I like that they kind of plant that seed so early on. Then you guys, like, it almost just like makes you aware of it as you're kind of shifting your mindset from competitive to collaboration.
Especially like coming from undergrad programs even too. I think sometimes you can be in that mindset of like, I need to be better than my peers. Like I need to be at the top of the class. But then they're like readjusting your mindset to be like, actually, you're here to work together and like all do well. Support each other. You're gonna all like be in this together. And so like the mutual success of others is a benefit to you as well.
Completely. What else? You got any other funny stories? Anything else that comes to mind?
Funny story. The mascot showed up at orientation and nobody was planning on that, not even the people running the orientation. So he just walked right in onto the stage and pretended to make some sort of speech, but he like didn't say anything, of course. Everyone was kind of thrown off. But that was funny.
That's hysterical.
I don't know why. Anyway. But he just walked right in and kind of threw it all off. And I thought it was good. Because there were a lot of speakers, so it was nice to have a little comedic moment. Do you have any interesting stories?
Oh, man. I have so many stories. Let's see. I have a story about a bug the other day.
A bug?
Yeah. I walked into a house, and it was the first time that I was going to this parent's house. I usually see it at the other parent's house. This was a different one. And I walked in, and you could tell that they had like freshly cleaned the floors, and they were just like pristine white, like super clean.
Wow.
And yeah, that was like refreshing to me. I'm like, all right, like I feel pretty good about this. And I like walk in, and I think I took like 2 steps in, and then I just see a cockroach like walk right across the floor. And I'm like, all right, not as clean as I thought it was. Now my guard's up, and I was just like, bright white floors and then this like dark cockroach, and I was like, awesome.
Yeah, the contrast.
Yeah, so that was fun. It's funny because originally I had this plan that we were going to be like more technical today, like going through like step-by-step things, but I feel like kind of just organically we're a little more like meta in our thinking right now. We're a little bit more just general ideas and topics and experiences, and like really kind of looking outside like the actual specifics. And it's like, I don't know, it's more just like this general flow and this general feeling about what's going on. And yeah, I like that it turned into this, even though like originally my plan was like completely something different. But again, like that, what I just said there completely ties right into OT school, because you might have a plan of how you are going to get in, what you are going to focus on, what you might want to do when you get out. And it's going to change. It's going to ebb and flow, and it's going to change all throughout OT school. So, yeah.
It's so good. I will come to you for any and all pep talks and motivational speeches.
Perfect.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do
Actually,
you,
I
yeah,
was going to say this is kind of our thing, that towards the end of the episode, I turn it over and I allow you I open it up so you can ask me questions. So, perfect.
beautiful. Well, I do have questions. So that's great.
Mm-hmm.
I am curious to know, do you have any advice for me as I start my program? Like how I can start this first week and entire first semester off well?
Yes. I think you just have to enter in having the mindset that it's okay that you don't know everything. I feel like, and I include myself in this when I was a student, I feel like we as students, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves that we need to understand everything the second that it's presented to us. And like, I mean, that's just not life. Sometimes it takes time. It takes multiple presentations. It takes just different exposures, or maybe somebody else explaining it differently, or actually seeing it in practice, or reading it in a book, like however it is that you take in your information. But I think just having the mindset that it's okay if it doesn't make sense right away, because it will. At some point, it will. Honestly, I feel like just embrace this time that you have, because it's going to go by so fast. Like, it's crazy for me. I'm sure it's crazy for you to hear that, because you're like, no, it's just starting. Like, I have 2.5 years. It's going to go by so fast. And so just embrace the time that you have as a student and learn as much as you can, meet as many people as you can, get exposed to as many things as you possibly can as you're a student, and really just like embrace that time, because down the road, you're going to look back and say, oh my goodness, school was 10 years ago, and that's right where I am. And oh wow, grad school was 20 years ago. And like you're going to look back and be like, wow, like that doesn't feel like it was that long ago, but so much has happened since then. So yeah, like embrace it and have fun, I think is my best advice.
Yeah, that means a lot to me, because I think like in starting the program, like I want to do so well that like I'm going to try my best, of course, but even already I can see myself thinking like there's so much terminology and like this world that I'm kind of stepping into that I still feel like a newbie in, that some people like say something and it just sounds so OT, and I'm like, oh wow, I wish I could do that. And I feel like I combat the fear of like, oh gosh, I can't do that. And so it's so good to hear that you're like, hey, it's okay to be in that place. Like eventually you're going to get through the program, which you're saying will last so short, and then be on the other end of it and realize that like I've gained all this knowledge of the OT profession. And yeah, it's exciting and also really encouraging to hear you say that.
Mm-hmm. I think too, as you were talking, I just thought of something else that I would also recommend. But I think another thing that would be really important is, and they're going to preach it in school, I know they will, but paying attention to your own self-care. Going to graduate school, going through an occupational therapy program is challenging. Like I know I mentioned it earlier, it's going to be hard. And you're going to have to devote a lot of time to studying, to classes, to group projects, to all these other things that come along with being in a program. And a lot of times it's easy to just kind of let the things that are important to you kind of take a back seat. And I know I did it as a student, and I would just highly recommend to make sure that even when things get stressful, even when you have no time, that you take a small amount of time for yourself and pay attention to your own self-care, because ultimately in the end, it will make a difference, even though it adds more onto your plate, but it will make a difference in your ability to keep up with the work and perform in school and just kind of maintain a balance and like a sense of sanity.
Yeah, I remember one of the students in the cohort before us who was there at orientation mentioned like, hey, there might come a moment where you're on the cusp of a grade and you could either like really push for like the higher grade in the situation at the expense of your sanity and like your health. And they're like, just don't. Like, you know what? Like there comes a moment where you can push for that, but it's like not worth it. Like in the grand scheme of things, like you're gonna be a great OT even if like you get a B in a class. Like it's like, yeah, trying to balance the workload versus your own health and sanity, I think is really important.
Yeah. And I think the main reason that I bring it up now is because you're excited and you might be a little nervous, but you're not like in that stressed out, like pulling out your hair stage. Right now, you kind of have a sense of clarity. And so I think it's good to like, again, it goes back to like what we were talking about earlier, like planting the seed early. So then when you get in that difficult situation, hopefully you can reflect a little bit and say, okay, hold on. This is really hard. This is not working because of X, Y, and Z. I need to do something for myself to help me through this time.
Yeah, I will look back on that and I will hopefully be in the right mindset to realize that.
In theory.
In theory. Like, you know what? Go to sleep.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Or go take a walk.
Exactly. Go do something. Do something that adds value and is helpful to you. I think that's the big thing. Any other questions for me?
Do you have any thoughts on like if there's a moment where I'm like afraid to ask a question to a professor or like meet them in their office for something? Like I don't know if that's going to be a thing, but I know that was a thing for me in undergrad. Mm-hmm. Like from the perspective of somebody who mentors younger people, like what is your perspective on the, like if I need something from somebody who is ahead of me, like and I'm dealing with that fear of talking to them.
Right.
Do you have any thoughts on that? You don't even, I don't know.
No, I mean, and I feel like I was somebody that didn't utilize my resources very well. So that question really resonates with me because I felt like I was the type of person that I needed to figure it out for myself. And if I didn't know the answer, it was on me to figure it out. Like this was not somebody telling me this. This was just how I operated when I was younger. And I mean, I feel like don't be afraid to go out and ask for help or ask a question, whether it is going to your advisor or faculty or professor, or reaching out to one of your classmates, or reaching out to maybe somebody who's in the year above you. Reaching out on social media. There are a lot of really supportive OTs out there on social media, and there's groups on Facebook, and there are amazing people on Instagram and Twitter. I see people asking questions out there all the time. So I think it's completely okay to seek out help from other people. I think another thing to mention is like, no question is too small or too silly. I think a lot of times it's like you feel, and I say you generally, people feel that, oh, well, this question, like, it could just be kind of silly. But it could also make the difference for you to start to grasp a topic, rather than if you don't ask the question and then you're going to continue to struggle with whatever it is that you are learning because you didn't ask what that very specific question that you had. So even though it might seem trivial to you, it might have a greater impact like down the line.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
See, I like this because you put me on the spot. Like I didn't have time to prepare for that. I was just like,
Yeah.
all right, I'm just gonna say what I have.
And then like one other question that just came to mind.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're ever a part of any student organizations while you were in your program, but I know that they brought up a few of them at orientation, and I had asked one of the students like what she thought about being in one of them and like also manage the coursework that they were working through. And maybe this goes to just like your answer earlier of balancing the things that like are meaningful to you and bring you life with your classes. But do you have any advice on trying, or like if somebody should, I guess, or just being involved with other things in addition to classes that are a part of the OT community at the school? Here's why I asked that, because I met a lot of different, or at least a handful. I met a handful of different leaders of these groups at orientation, and it just kind of like sparked a little something in me, be like, that's something that I think would be a really cool thing to be a part of. But then also that tiny voice inside, you're like, that's also going to be another thing on your plate to have to manage. And I just kind of like am going back and forth between the two of like, I think that'd be really cool versus that might be a lot.
So I'll tell you a little bit about me, and then I'll tell you kind of what I would recommend.
Okay.
So when I was in school, I was not a very active student. I really, like the things that we've been talking about today, I did not do as a student myself. I was not part of any of the organizations, anything with like student leadership, like unfortunately, and I mean, I'm being honest, I was not into that. Looking back, I wish I had. I wish I had done something. I don't know specifically what it would have looked like, but I wish that I was a little bit more involved. And so part of me says, if you're interested in it and you're motivated and passionate about it, do it. Because if it's important to you, you'll make the time to do that as well as devote the time to studying and everything else that you need to do in your program. But if it's not interesting and you're not passionate about it, then I wouldn't do it. Like when I go to conferences, and I always tend to go to a lot of these like leadership presentations and leadership meetings. And the big kind of take home point that I have is, or that I get, is that it doesn't really matter where you are, anyone can be a leader. And so if going into a leadership organization or some sort of like student advocacy group or something like that, if that's what you want to do, great. But just because you don't do it doesn't mean that you can't be a leader in another capacity. So I don't know if I'm quite answering your question, but I think if it adds value and you want to do it, great. And if it doesn't, don't do it, and you'll find something else that you can do that will add value. Because I think it really depends on the person. And I think some people are really into the leadership and the advocacy and going that route, but it's not for everybody. Mm-hmm. And it might not be right for you in school. Because I feel like when I was in school, it wasn't right for me. And now I'm like super pro like leadership advocacy.
Yeah.
Like I'm on the other end of the spectrum now.
Yeah. And it's not like because you didn't do it before, you can't do it now.
Right. Yeah. Great questions. Well, I feel like we should probably wrap it up, but I didn't do it in our last recording, so I am going to do it this time. You probably know what I'm going to ask you. I asked you something similar, but I let you elaborate. Now I'm going to make you be very concise with your answer. I'm going to give you one word to describe occupational therapy.
Part of me feels like I have a hard time answering it because, like, what do I know? I haven't even started school. But even with that, the word that comes to mind is life. That's like so broad, but also life as this all-encompassing term really connects with what occupational therapy is about. I think that comes from how like OT fits into somebody's life no matter where they are, as well as like the desire of an OT is for somebody to live life to their fullest. And so I think that's where that word kind of arises from in my mind.
Mm-hmm. I like it. I think it's a good one. But of course, it's spelled with a Y.
Oh. Yes. Life with a Y.
Right? Of course. Yeah. All right. Rachel, this has been so fun and just such a great opportunity to kind of sit down and kind of jump inside your head a little bit about where you are right now as you are days away from starting an occupational therapy graduate program, and really exciting and, you know, maybe a little bit of nerves there, but I'm so appreciative that you came on and shared a little bit more about what's been going on since we last chatted. And I'm so thankful that you came on to share your story today.
Thank you so much for letting me even be here. Like, oh, goodness gracious. I really appreciate just everything that this podcast offers, and to be a part of it is just really, really neat.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that as well. And we will definitely touch base maybe in a couple months and see where you are then.
Yeah, hopefully I'm still excited. I'm sure you'll be.
I'm sure you will be. You're probably going to be deep within the weeds of school, but
Yep.
That's all part of it. And really just being honest about the entire thing and highlighting when it's good and showcasing when it's bad is also going to happen too.
It's all real life.
Exactly. So thank you and good luck starting your program.
Thank you.
Hey, before you go, I just wanted to say thanks for listening to today's episode. If you want to further the discussion, go to our website, otforlife.com, and join our Facebook group. If you like us, here are 3 easy ways to let us know. 1. Share our podcast with a friend, colleague, or anyone interested in occupational therapy. 2. Leave us a review on iTunes or anywhere this podcast is found. 3. Subscribe to us so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. Thanks again. We'll catch you next time, OT for Lifers. Oh, man.
One more time.
Yeah, bad.
Okay.
This is just bad. At least it's me. It's not you. You're like already, and I'm like, my mind is mush here.
Wait, that's a good story. Actually, yes, I do want to tell us.
Okay.
Blah, blah, blah. Let's start the story over.
No worries. It's not just me. Yay.
It's not. Okay.
I don't know what's going on with my internet tonight. At least it's not like dropping completely. Hopefully it won't do that.
Stop it, internet.
I know. Okay, yeah. There's nothing too fascinating about the GRE.
Like, sorry. I wish I had more interesting stories.
Yeah.
It's just a test. Well, let's see. You should cut out my random verbalizing. Well, I think.
Except for, I don't know if you've been paying attention. I think it's been my last maybe 3 or 4 episodes. If you haven't yet, you're gonna have to start doing it. You have to listen to the entire episode, and listen after the music, like the ending music, because I've started putting bloopers in it.
That's so good.
So it might not make it into the actual recording, but anything that's really funny, it's going in the blooper section. So
that's so good. That's a really good idea. I love that.
Oh yeah, they're amazing, but you literally have to listen to the entire episode in order to get there. I love it. Yes.
Like a knock joke.
Right.
I have none. No, I'm sorry.
You don't have a good knock joke? Do you have a good joke?
Gosh, I wish I did.
This is just going to be like a random like smattering of topics. And hold on. Breaking news. We have to talk about the egg.
It's literally at 21 million now. There's so many people that are a part of this. People are so great.
I am not one of them yet. I have not
Oh,
liked
come
it
on.
yet. Nope.
Sarah.
Nope. I haven't done it yet. I
Be a
haven't
part
done
of
it
history.
yet. You text me earlier and all I get is get on Instagram and go check out the world record egg. Like, what?
It's so funny. Sorry. I don't know why, but it makes me laugh. People are hashtagging #egg for Prez 2020. I just think it's so funny. Anyway.
I think it's actually more funny that you think it's so funny. Because, like, even after you told me about it, I was like, okay, I still don't get it.
Not interesting.
Yeah. But the fact that you think it's so funny, I'm like, all right. Like, now I just think it's funny because you think it's funny.
Well, I'm glad. Oh, man.
Oh, my goodness.
Anyway, put that in your bloopers.
All right. Right?
Was it?
Friday.
What day are we on? It's today?
It's
okay.
Sunday.
Yep, 2 days ago.
I was like, wait a second.
I clearly was not conscious in the last 24 hours, where I think yesterday was Friday.
Hey, I thought I recorded last night and it was Friday night, so don't worry. I'm there with you.
Cool word is a hard word to say sometimes. Gosh darn.
I just totally hit my headphones. That was probably not the best thing. I'm gonna put my pen down before I make weird noises.
It's real life, man.
Yeah, right.
Oh shoot. My brain literally just went blank. Hang on. It's coming back.
Okay.
I don't know if you were ever a part of student blah blah blah. And
oh my goodness, I'm such a dork. But yep. Mm-hmm. That's what you get.
Wow, honestly, I didn't even realize the plug there for the podcast. That's so funny.
Right? Blah. I can't even talk tonight. Jeez.
I love it.
Oh gosh, these bloopers are going to be good.